Hello. Just welcome to another Kingdom Journey with Pastor Ron, and we're so glad that you have chosen to tune in today. And this is really a very special day because we have Sylvia Collins with us today. In fact, Sylvia, you're our first guest.
Oh, I'm
Really?
privileged.
Yes,
Thank you.
first
Thank
guest. And I was going to get you a very special gift, but I forgot. So there goes my memory. But I just want to thank you for joining us on Kingdom Journey. And I'm excited to talk to you today about the ministry that you have, and really something I know that's really very dear to your heart. So I think it'd be good for our audience if they could just hear a little bit about who Sylvia is and maybe how this ministry came into being.
Okay, well, I grew up in Washington on a farm, and I was a registered nurse for my career.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I were married for 47 years,
Oh,
and
wow.
I've been a widow for 5.5 years.
Okay.
And when I was at a luncheon last spring, widows were talking. Most of the people at my group were widows, and they began to share tips that they had learned after their spouses had died, and how surprised they were to find these things out that they thought they should have known before. So I went home and began to wonder what we could do about that.
About the widows that you met? Or-
Yes, well,
okay.
about how could we help people to know these things before the
sure.
spouse died.
Oh, okay, before they
Yeah.
died, right.
Yeah, so today I'm here to share about a new ministry, which we are calling Finish Well.
Finish well.
Finish Well. And it is to hopefully help people get their estates in order. And so it's an act of love, really, to whoever has to take care of your things after you go, so that they're not, they're already grieving, and we don't want them to be distraught because they can't figure things out. And if everything's in order, that will be helpful. And I think it gives the person who has prepared a peace that they've done the best they can do, to help. So we're trying to come up with ideas and ways to accomplish that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know one thing that we talked about is that I know in our former church we had what we call a pre-need, where we had people actually plan their own service ahead of time. And I know we've talked a little bit about that. Can you see that being a part of your ministry?
Yes, actually, I have a form here that I
Oh,
got from
great.
the church, which people can get from the office and fill out. It talks about your wishes for your memorial service. It also gives family information, and what kind of things you would want done during a service. And if that can be filled out, that's a lot of help for somebody,
Right.
just to have an idea. They don't necessarily have to follow everything, but at least it gives them some ideas. And also, there is in the office a sheet called the Emergency Information Sheet, which is very helpful, I think, to the staff of the church. It's just you put down who to contact in case of emergency, because we have people pass, and then if there's no relatives or whatever here. So those two things can be helpful to start with. And then we're hoping maybe to have some professionals come in, if that's what our people need, like attorneys for wills or estates, trusts, that kind of thing, and maybe some information about hospice or mortuaries. Maybe have small groups where people are discussing what they've come up with, how they were able to organize things. That's what we're working on.
Sure.
And one of the things I would like to do, and hopefully that'll come out in the near future, is a survey that we can put in the bulletin that people can fill out about what they see as their needs or where they are in this process, so that'll help us know what we need to do. And that we're hoping to put that in the bulletin, and then you can just fill it out and leave it in the offering plate, and we'll get it from there. So.
Yeah, I was thinking about my last congregation. We made this type of material available to our congregants, and what was so refreshing about that, well, maybe refreshing isn't the right word, but helpful for the people was that when they lost their spouse, it was it was better to have some information on what that service might look like instead of a family sitting down from scratch and trying to figure out, well, I'm not sure my husband would want this, but if you have that pre-need made out, it just makes it so much easier for the family to be able to put that service together. And I love the idea of the emergency, because what we've discovered even here, so occasionally we've had a death occur, but we had no idea if there was any family, if there was, how to even get a hold of them. And so that puts us in kind of in a little bit of a challenging position. So I like all those kind of ideas. So what do you see a little bit different between your ministry, for example, and maybe Grief Share?
Well, our ministry would address things before the person passes.
Okay.
Grief Share is to help the people after the passing. So what I would like to see is husbands and wives communicating what their wishes are, and not only that, but usually it's one spouse who takes care of maybe the finances and the
Right.
other one doesn't really know. I would like to see communication of that, at least where do we find it?
Yeah.
And going over it every once in a while as to this is what's going on right now.
Right.
Like I used to give my husband a quarterly State of the Union meeting, where I would share this is what our finances are and
Yeah.
this is what's happening and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So also, where are the passwords? Who's got the passwords and how do we know what they are? And all those little things that we maybe don't think about or that people don't want to talk about. And that I think is going to be a hurdle. We need to have everybody, because even me, I'm single, but somebody's going to take care of my estate. Somebody's going to have to deal with this. So we need to be willing to learn what we can learn so that we'll be better prepared if we become a widow, if we become a widower, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I know my own experience doing all these memorial services I've done in my life. It's oftentimes the husband is the one that takes care of the finances. And even here in Green Valley, when Pat and I have visited the widows afterwards, they are really at a loss because they don't know like you said, they don't know the passwords. So when they're trying to contact, maybe an investment company or the bank or something, they're asking for passwords and they don't have them. And it's so frustrating for them because they have to go through a long, lengthy process with a financial institution of any kind in order to get access to their finances. So I think that's just a great preventative type of thing that we need to provide for our people. I'm just wondering how challenging it is, do you think it's going to be for people? And we talked a little bit about this. Some people just don't even want to admit that. And it's easier, well, if I don't talk about it, it's like it's not going to happen. Is that something you think that you've run into?
Yes, I got a call just yesterday from a husband who he heard about this and he wants to be prepared. He wants to do it, but he said, my wife really just doesn't even want to do it, doesn't want to talk about it. So I'm not sure, how that's going to work out, but all we can do is encourage people that
Right.
knowing that on the front end, the more you know, the easier it's going to make it on the back end.
Right. And I think that's so important because, and we want to do is to reach out to these people, and we run into that too. It's like, if I don't talk about it, it's not going to happen. Well, death is inevitable. Unless Jesus Christ comes back, we're all going to die. And as Christians, we have a great hope in front of us. And, really, it's not about me anymore. It's really about providing the tools and resources for our loved ones. Okay, so Sylvia, as a pastor, I think I've run into that problem often about people not wanting to talk about end-of-life experiences for a lot of different reasons. I'm not sure why. It's kind of a puzzle to me. I think I mentioned that we're all going to die. But, when we get at that stage, I feel we need to be a little bit more in tune and aware of what is going to be best for our surviving spouse. And I think you mentioned it, it's important for spouses to sit down and talk about that. I know Pat and I, we do that. We've got everything planned out. Literally, we're not going to have a service. But we are going to have a graveside service back in Wisconsin. We're going to be buried where my family plots are, my brother, my sister-in-law, my family. Pat's niece's husband is a pastor, so we're going to have a small graveside service. Yesterday, we redid our wills, did everything with our wills, plus our end-of-life choices. We re-upped them. And Pat said to me, "This is the last time?" And I said to her, "Yeah, because we're going to be in heaven for the next go-around." But then we got home, and she told me when I got home last night, she said, "Here's all the paperwork. It's in this file cabinet, in this room, part of the room," which is important because my son will be coming down in March, and my son, our oldest granddaughter, is our administrators of our estate. So I'll be able to tell Todd, this is where if something happens to Mom and I, this is where you'll find the information. But those are all things that are preparatory to make it easier on our family.
Right.
And it just, as a pastor, having worked with probably 400 families in my career, I can't tell you how often having things planned ahead of time is so beneficial for the family. So I thank you for, I love that, appreciate that. I thought about something else. Is there maybe one more thing that you could say to our audience that might give you a little hint about what the ministry is going to do and where you're going from here? Maybe that's a better question.
Well, we're working on a brochure. We're working on a survey, which I spoke to earlier. And now I think we need to come up with a checklist of some basic things that people can do ahead of time, because if they haven't begun to do anything, and that would give them even, I can check these things off, I've done those, but these are the things I still need to do. So there's that. And then we have professionals. I have a retired social worker who would be willing to come and talk about advanced directives and things like that. Hospices, we would like to help people know that there's several hospices out there, and always people wait too long to go on hospice. So if we understand better that hospice is really so much to help the family member and the dying person, that they can be so supportive, I think that can be helpful too, and maybe even scope out a hospice that you like, so that when that time comes, you know who to call. Mortuary choices, or do you want to be buried or do you want to be cremated? Just to help people think through those things. And also, maybe you just need some organizational help. You need a notebook or whatever kind of way that you would keep these so that the other person can find it. One of the things I found online, and I don't want to be an advertiser, but it's called a knock box. It's spelled N-O-K, and stands for next of kin. And it is extreme. It has every last detail you could possibly want and makes it very easy. On one side, you either write down or put in, say like you were doing your medical or your car insurance. You put the copy of the car insurance there, and then, or write it on the sheet, whichever you want. And then on the back of the sheet, it's everything that next of kin needs to do after you pass with that information. So that's very helpful for some people. For some, that might be too detailed. It depends on, everyone's situation is different. But
I was going to ask you, if people contacted you and your team, are you available to go and visit them in their homes?
yes, in fact, there's a couple of people on the team that would be very interested in doing that, who are highly organized people. I'm not sure I'm qualified in that regard, but yes, and I've even had a lady who would volunteer to teach someone to cook. When I mentioned it in my small group, this ministry, and I said, even like men or maybe women, because sometimes the men do all the cooking, who knows, and you don't know how to cook afterwards, so learning how to do some basic cooking. And her husband, evidently, they decided that they needed to teach him how to cook, and so he's learning how to cook, and she's now willing to teach others, she told me. So I'm like, who knows where this can go. It's just a lot.
It sounds like really there's a kind of like an endless list of possibilities and opportunities for people to take advantage of this. And maybe once again you could tell our audience how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things I would like people to do. First off, think about the survey. Assess where you are at this point. Have I done nothing? Are we good? Have we got a notebook and everything's in order? Because I have run across one person who was like that. Kind of assess that, and then to communicate with your spouse or whoever. Start to talk about what we need to do, what's already done, what the wishes are, and then finally to pray for us as a team. I'm not announcing the team yet because it's still a little bit in flux, but we do have a team. We are actually having a meeting tomorrow. So we really need your prayers on where to go with this.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and then call me, or I'm in the directory, and you can call the office if you don't have a directory, and they can relay your information to me, and I'll get a hold of you.
Okay, that sounds really great. And, don't be afraid if you don't reach Sylvia that, of course, Pat and I are always on call. And I have to tell you, I made a decision that I was going to give all my guests a gift, and I forgot. So Sylvia gave me a website about regaining my memory. So I'm going to go home and go on the website and see if I can get back some of my memory so I can see her on Sunday and give her the gift that I promised her. But Sylvia, seriously, thank you for coming on Kingdom Journey. While you are the first one, I think you just did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
And,
I'm privileged and honored. Thank
yeah,
you.
and I think our audience is going to love it. Anyway, and one other thing I want to kind of remind you that we're going to start the book of Colossians, I think it's the 7th of February, 9 o'clock. And we're going to do 8 to 10 weeks of going through the book of Colossians. It's a fantastic book. In fact, I talked to a pastor friend of mine just the other day, and he said it's his favorite book in the New Testament. And we'll do a lot of work about the lordship and headship of Christ in the church. Actually, it's a good sermon series for a congregation. But anyway, if you just write that down too, besides what Sylvia told you, February 7th, 9 o'clock, the book of Colossians. Love to see you there. Thank you for joining us on Kingdom Journey today. We'll hope to see you soon, and goodbye.